Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning and welcome to a wonderful new Sunday morning on Faith in Our Hometown. Thanks for joining us this morning. Maybe this is your first time and maybe you come back all the time. I have truly enjoyed running into folks at the grocery store and those kinds of things where they say they've been watching the show. So I know there's some of you out there, which is wonderful. This morning, my guests are going to be two young women from the St. Peter's Youth Group, Emma Leach and Szell. And they're going to be talking a little bit about a project that they're trying to get the parish to get involved in and care about it because of their own studies and because of they've been figuring out how things are in the world. They want to make a little bit of a difference. And so they're going to try to convince us at St. Peter's to make that bit of a difference. And I've been fascinated by their drive, by their passion, and I wanted them to share that with all of you this morning as well. So, thanks for joining us. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Please don't go away and stay with us this morning as we talk a little bit about fair trade.
The different bariatric surgical options here at Mercy Joplin includes laparoscopic Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, and laparoscopic lap band placement. In addition, we also offer revisional laparoscopic surgeries for those patients that have had previous bariatric procedures but have had failures. The surgical procedure of choice will vary with different individuals, and so that's why our team will work with the patient on an individual basis to determine which procedure is the best fit for them. All three of the bariatric procedures that we offer here at Mercy Joplin have a long track record of proven safety and efficacy. The best procedure for the individual has to be a decision to be decided between the patient and the physician.
So thanks for joining us again this Sunday morning. Again, my guests this morning are two members of the St. Peter's Youth Group, which I'm a little bit familiar with and a little prejudiced about. But my guests are Szell and Emma Leach. And so, ladies, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves this morning?
Well, I'm Maddie. I'm a sophomore at Macaulay Catholic High School, and I'm an FBLA in volleyball.
Okay.
I'm Emma. I'm a sophomore at Carl Junction High School, and I'm involved in track and cross country, and I play in our band.
Cool. All right, so you guys are involved with St. Peter's Youth Group. I'm guessing that from talking to your friends, St. Peter's Youth Group is really not all that different than a lot of the other youth groups around town, right?
No.
Okay, but one of the things that you guys have stumbled upon in your discussions at youth group, you now want the parish to suddenly jump on board and care about, and that's the issue of fair trade. Okay, so why don't you say a little bit about how you guys stumbled onto this whole thing?
Well, we were learning about social injustices in the world, and one really stood out to us, and that was the injustices that corporations are putting against workers in developing countries. So American consumers definitely want the lowest price, and corporations know that, so they go to where they think they can get the lowest wage, where workers will want the least. So these workers are in terrible conditions, and we're trying to mend that a little bit.
So just by caring about the workers somewhere else, or that even if you have to pay a few cents more for, a pound of coffee or whatever, you think that's worth it if somebody's going to be treated the right way.
Definitely.
Yes. Okay. So what have you found out about some of those conditions and about the way that stuff works?
Well, the main thing that we found out is their terrible living conditions. There are about 60 families per every small house, and they're given a quota each week that they have to meet of the amount of crop that is harvested. And if they don't meet that quota, they are not paid for that week. So oftentimes they'll have mothers and fathers out there working in the fields, but their children will be out there helping them meet this quota, and the children are not getting paid for their work. So in return,
kind of like it's a family wage
yes.
rather than an individual wage.
Yes.
Okay. So what else are you finding out?
And since they're out there working, they aren't getting educated. They aren't learning the stuff that they need to learn. They aren't learning how to break free of the cycle. So again, it just becomes an endless circle of poverty and slavery.
Yeah, and again, I don't think that that's necessarily what American corporations are trying to do. Do you think?
No, not necessarily. It's kind of hard because some corporations aren't exactly sure what's going on. Some are, but some just kind of know that the coffee's being made, they're getting this to the consumer, but they don't really know the conditions that the workers and the farmers are in.
Yeah, sometimes I agree with you. I think that sometimes it's a lack of awareness, but I think that sometimes it's just kind of like, again, profit drives everything in the United States.
Right.
You know, and it's just like, well, if we can get it cheaper, we're going to get it cheaper. And so sometimes we wind up I think, in business practices that sometimes can really, again, take advantage of people, even if that wasn't how maybe they started out, but that's kind of what's occurred.
Exactly.
So how does fair trade, and so let's talk about that term fair trade, because that's something most of our listeners probably have maybe not heard of before. Right. So what's the term mean?
So fair trade itself is essentially a set of regulations that corporations and businesses can follow that has been deemed good working conditions, good wages, good lives for workers.
So let's say a little bit about that. So, we talked about sometimes that family wage, or we've talked about, the kids not being in school or learning, but, working in the fields instead. What would fair trade and what would those practices look like in a fair trade operation?
Well, in a fair trade operation, it would have correct hours and correct quotas for these people to meet, not easy, but reasonable amounts that they have to bring in, that they wouldn't need to bring their children out, and it would have reasonable pay for these quotas. It wouldn't be like low for a super high quota or high for a super low quota. It would be exactly what these people need, and it would provide better living conditions, better plumbing, better electricity, and it would provide schools for these children.
So in some of the fair trade operations, they actually provide that infrastructure as well?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And in some cases, it's just simply that they're paying them probably a little bit higher wage, to compensate for some of those things so that they can make those changes or things on their own.
Yes.
Just depending on, I guess, the operation and where they are. And again, I know that, that there are lots of fair trade organizations in the world. I know that lots of missionaries of all kinds of different stripes are out there advocating for some of the people where they are working and seeing those things, and they're trying to make sure that their people aren't, that the people in, the wealthier nations are not just taking advantage of the folks in another nation.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys had this idea about how to, to bring these things that you were learning to the parish. So talk about how, what you were thinking about in that regard. How you're going to bring some of this stuff to the parish.
Well, we just realized that this is something that we can affect. This is something we can improve, and sometimes it's so hard to find things that especially young people can improve upon in the world.
You mean as teenagers you're not wildly powerful and don't run the world?
It's crazy.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that, but as far as I'm concerned, you're not getting to run mine. But go ahead. So tell me how that works for you. How are you gonna make this change?
We came to realize that one of the products that people are abused the most in is the production of coffee. Okay. So we learned that there is actually a lot of fair trade coffee in the world that is actually fair trade, and the people who make it are given good wages and good conditions. And so we found this specific company. It's called Equal Exchange.
Okay.
And it's especially great because not only are workers given fair wages and fair conditions and things, but the farmers themselves own the farms, and it's a democracy with the corporations, with Equal Exchange. So we found this, and we thought, hey, why don't we try and start with our parish and switch them to this coffee, explain to them how they can make a difference, how we can make a difference, and how we can all help the body of Christ. If we're all part of the body of Christ, then can't we try and help even those that are far away, since we're still all together with Christ?
Yeah. All right. So tell me, if I'm the one buying the coffee, for St. Peter's or for whatever church I happen to be with, what kind of an approach? How are we going to approach our folks who buy our supplies and do all those things for the parish? How are we going to convince them that this is a better way to go?
Well, whenever you compare the coffee prices of the larger corporations and these, they really aren't that different. It's mostly 10 to 20 cents difference. And this,
I'd pay 10 to 20 cents more for this pound of coffee
around
versus
yes.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And this has a lot of better morals behind it than the other coffee. This would bring you a better, make your conscience feel better because you're helping other people, helping people who are in poverty, helping them get out of that instead of advocating for that. Even if you aren't educated in that, you don't necessarily realize it. there's still that difference.
Yeah. So so that's one place to start, okay, is with the parish in terms of, so like all of our Sunday morning coffee and donuts, okay?
Right.
We actually are going to give this a shot and see what we're doing in terms of trying to make that difference in terms of coffee and donuts. We're going to try to make sure our coffee is fair trade on a Sunday morning. What else are you going to do with the coffee?
We are hoping to expand it, so if it goes well within the parish, and we think it will, we'll expand it to other churches, maybe get in contact with other youth groups, see what they think about it, and we could possibly make it a citywide thing and really make a difference.
Cool. And you also, I know, have plans to also then offer the coffee in bulk like this to any of our parishioners who want to buy
Yes.
it as well. So in other words, not only are we going to be serving it whenever we serve coffee, but we're also going to get, invite parishioners if they want to purchase the coffee and use it in their own homes.
Right.
Yes.
All right, again, trying to do some of that. And again, interesting, for folks who want to do, who are worried about different kinds. Obviously, there are all kinds of different roasts,
Oh, yeah.
and there are all kinds of different preparations and those kinds of things. This is actually organic, okay, which I know appeals to, again, a certain group or a certain audience. They'd be able to do different blends, light, dark, all those kinds of things. Same things that we always look for in our custom-made coffee, because people are picky about coffee.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Are you guys coffee drinkers?
Yes.
Occasionally.
Okay, all right. But so you drink it from time to time, and you like the flavor of this?
Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to be finding out at St. Peter's because I know that's going to be one of those things that we're going to try and go to. I also buy, I bought for years many things different, fair trade and those kinds of things. And there are, not all coffees are not created equal. All chocolates are not created equal. And that's one of my favorite little things here that you brought along here is this. This might have to go into my pocket. I'll pay
yeah,
you for
go
it.
ahead.
But at any rate, also chocolate is another one of those areas where people are, sometimes taken advantage of.
Oh
Right.
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And coffee and chocolate are actually two of the United States' main imports. And so we're hoping by transferring people to the coffee and to the chocolate, it might help, increase those abilities and opportunities for the people over that are having to deal with these kind of conditions.
Because again, this is like anything else, like any successful business, you gotta market, you gotta do your thing to try to get people to pay attention to those things, okay? So so you're gonna have even that. Now, I'm surprised that they're even making coffee cups, because this is one of those things that a lot of the environmentalists and a lot of people really just squawk
Yeah.
about a lot, is whether or not we should even have, but obviously even fair trade in the little coffee cups to go with your little coffee makers of today, which is interesting. So this is one of those things, you get the parish to do it, get the individuals to do it. We're doing coffee, we're doing chocolate. Anything else? Any other big plans to roll that out in a different way?
Actually, my school does a coffee shop in the mornings, and what we're thinking about is maybe talking to them and getting them integrated in this.
Well, good. I mean, again, now see, here's the interesting part to this whole thing, and this is what I love about some of what you guys have done, is you've picked something very limited and tried to figure out how you guys might be able to make a difference, which is one of the reasons I was excited about it, okay? Because I thought, okay, this was not my idea. This wasn't Father Jay coming up with an idea, but it was the youth group coming up with an idea. And if we can get our folks to do something, you guys can get them to do things faster than I can get them to do it. So even the teaching them about, but we're going to talk a little bit about the teaching and how we might go about some of that teaching in the parish in just a second, okay? But we're going to take a little break here, a short break, and we're going to be right back. So don't go away. We'll be right back. This is Faith in Our Hometown. Stick with us.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, thanks for sticking with us this morning. We're back with members of the St. Peter's Youth Group, fine young women, in my opinion. Okay,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Your parents are probably happy too. Okay, but this is Emma Leach and Maddie Szell, and they're here talking about their idea to bring fair trade knowledge and fair trade coffee and chocolate to St. Peter's. and to perhaps even spread that with other youth groups and those kinds of things here in the area. So ladies, we were talking a little bit about the education and how you were going to go about that. So this is going to be interesting. We haven't talked about this at all yet. So I'm kind of interested to say, how do you think you're going to get not just people to buy the coffee, because I think that's going to be actually the easiest sell.
I agree.
Okay?
Yes.
I don't think they're going to care paying 20 cents a pound more for coffee. It's not going to hurt St. Peter's at all to pay 20 cents a pound more for coffee. Okay? And I think that some of our folks, because the youth group is selling it, they're just thinking they're going to help you go on a youth group trip or something. But that's not what this is all about.
No.
Okay? This is about making a difference in the world. So how are we going to do the other piece? How are we going to educate the parish?
So we have actually started, not really a business, but our project, we've named it Just Java Coffee with a Conscience. And a couple people have begun on a website so that if people have questions after buying the coffee, or if they're hesitant to buy the coffee, they can go on the website and they can, get some information. And then after 9 o'clock masses during Coffee and Donuts is when we're going to be selling this. And when people come up to us and they say, hey, what are you guys doing? You see you're part of the youth group, we'll have enough knowledge and we'll be able to explain. We'll explain the poor conditions people are living in now. We can explain what this is, what equal exchange and what free trade, fair trade is.
And I think that some of this is going to be important. Now, I think it's really important that you guys understand, for one thing, this is not going to suddenly bring people in another part of the world suddenly up to living the same way that we live in the United States.
Right.
But it is going to be making a difference, because for the labor that they're expending, they're going to be making a much better wage.
Definitely.
And we'll be able to make those choices for how to improve lives for their own families as they go along. So you're going to do this. You're going to go ahead and put it, so the So what's the name of the website again? So is it up and running yet already?
Not quite yet.
Okay, all right. But if our listeners want to get onto it, what are you going to call it again? Just Java?
Coffee with a Conscience.
Yes.
Coffee with a Conscience, just all like one word. Just Java Coffee with a Conscience?
I don't think we've quite settled exactly on the name. I think it's going to be along the lines of Just Java.
Okay, Just Java Coffee with a Conscience, which is I love it. By the way, I love the
Thank
title.
you.
Very good. Very well done. You guys might have a career in marketing ahead of you.
Oh,
This
great.
wouldn't be bad.
That's awesome.
But because it is a justice issue. Okay,
Yes.
It is a justice issue, and that's how you guys got onto it. That's how you guys found out about it. All right, so you're going to educate through the website. You're going to educate on a Sunday morning. Okay, you'll educate with information while you're selling the coffee and those kinds of things. But do you have any plans to go and maybe talk to parish groups?
We certainly could. That's a great
Yes.
idea. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I'm just because I hadn't heard your quote marketing plan
Right.
for how you were going to actually do the teaching and the education. Because for me, ladies, I'm just going to tell you that's one of the key issues. It really is. I think that when people understand why you guys got passionate about this, I think that even realizing themselves, if I just sacrifice 20 cents here, I can make, rather than just doing the corporate brand. Now, some of the corporate brands some do fair trade.
Yes, some do. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
just depending and all this kind of, and again, I think we should support that if that's their favorite brand or whatever. But by doing some of this, by them thinking, well, 20 cents here and 20 cents there is not going to kill me, but it's going to make a huge difference in the lives of somebody else around the world.
Yes.
And I think that by doing that, I think that is going to be what's going to kind of sometimes, get it and change minds and change hearts to maybe jump on board and to try this in a little bit of a bigger way. I know that you guys are right now just going to start. You're going to start with just the coffee, or you're going to start with the coffee and the chocolate?
I think right now we're just starting with the coffee, but we're going to have chocolate if people wanted to order it. We aren't going to have it for sale necessarily with the coffee, but we would have the opportunity for people to order it.
So
if they
that'd be
needed
also
to.
part of being on the website and getting the information
Yes.
and doing all that stuff, that they'd have the opportunity to do some of those other things.
Right.
Would they have, because I do know, again from my own experience, that there's a whole catalog of fair trade products out there.
Yes.
Will they have access to some of that if they again are part of the website? Just out of curiosity.
We would like to do that. We're going to have to do a little more research because we've come to learn that some corporations say they're fair trade when in actuality they aren't really. So we'll have to do a little more research into that, but we would like to get to that point eventually.
Well, and it's very interesting because this can be a hot topic among social justice-y types.
Yes.
Okay, like obviously you guys are turning out to be, and I'm very happy about that. Okay, but that can be a hot topic among some folks. And again, I think you're right. Like anybody else, not everybody's always honest.
Yeah.
And that means it requires a little bit of homework, and it requires a little bit of a verification. And again, you guys sitting in Joplin, Carl Junction, are not going to be able to necessarily be the verifying body, but then you've got to work with other organizations and people like that who are out there in the field and can verify those things for you.
Yes.
Because again, not everybody's honest, and some people you can slap the terms, fair trade or equal exchange or stuff like that on something, but it doesn't necessarily always mean that it's there. But you guys have done your homework and you trust this company because they've been verified
Absolutely.
by
Yes.
other groups.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so in terms of that, so if another youth group wanted to get you, now obviously we were smarter than to put your email addresses and all those things on there. But if you want to use the Faith in Our Hometown email address, and if any youth groups or any churches out there want to find out what your experience has been, they can certainly contact that address, and we'll get the information to you if you want to share that. And again, I encourage you, to make sure that you're talking to the other students at your high schools that have those kinds of groups that would get out there and perhaps even maybe want to take that to their own parishes.
Yeah,
in effect. But your experience is going to benefit a lot of people, and that's why I was excited when you wanted to do it. What other exciting things do you guys do in terms of that social justice-y realm? Because you guys have, something turned you on to this. So what started making you aware and wanting to take care of people around the world? What was that all about?
This summer, we actually took a mission trip down to San Benito, Texas, and we were down there for about 4 days. And 2 of the days, we worked at a Catholic charity organization where they would bring the immigrants in from the detention centers that they went to as soon as they crossed the border, and we would get them backpacks filled with toiletries, necessity items, and we would get them food, a shower, and clean clothes, and then we would give them a space in a tent that they could sleep before they could get to a bus or a plane to get to wherever they're going.
Especially
Yes.
to people, their families that were going to welcome them. Now, most of these folks were actually refugees, correct?
Yes.
Yes. All right, so they were fleeing something and would have at that point in time actually had to make sure that they had enough of a case for seeking asylum in the
Yes.
U.S.
Yes.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have been turned loose, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
To do some of those things. But you went down and you investigated that. And so what were your reactions upon seeing? Because you guys are probably, now I'm just going to say this out here in TV land, there are lots of people who say a lot of things about refugees. There are a lot of people who say a lot of things about folks who are seeking safety or things like that here in the United States, and some of them never laid eyes on any of them. What have your been reactions after you've laid eyes on some of these folks in the flesh?
Well, I was shocked and emotional. It was a crazy experience, and I learned so much. I think we all did.
Yes.
A lot of the people who are seeking asylum are from Africa. They're from Central America. They're from South America. They're from places that we don't expect people to be coming that far to the United States on foot, almost always. And it was so sad to see a young mother who had, with a 4-week-old baby, who her clothing was all dirty and terrible, and the baby was hardly clothed at all. And it was it was amazing to be able to help these people, but it was also very sad to see that these were the situations they were in.
Well, and some people just say, people just want to come here for those things, but most of those people wouldn't make a journey like that. With all the requisite dangers that are part of making a journey like that, if they weren't really desperate.
Yes.
Yeah, which is kind of a bit of an eye opener, because that baby was given birth somewhere along the way.
Yes.
I remember that particular woman as she came through, and I remember looking at that little tiny baby, going, "What have you been through on this journey?" And along the way. Yeah. So when you learned that, what did it came back making you wonder what all these things that you hear in the news are all about, eh?
Yes.
Definitely.
So did it change your mind on the issue of refugees? What do you now when you hear some things on the news about some of the things we want to do or not do, what does that do to you on the inside?
It's honestly almost maddening because with us, we've experienced these people firsthand, and we've seen what they've really gone through. We've heard the stories, and these people are being unfairly judged, and they're being turned away from these experiences and these opportunities that they desperately need because people are nervous because there's going to be one bad apple coming through. And it would be hard to screen every single person, and that could happen. But these people, they're fleeing from something. They wouldn't make these journeys just because, like you said, just for these opportunities. They are escaping something, they need help, and it's very emotional to hear these things and to know what these people have actually gone through.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be screened. I'm not saying that they should not go through their asylum cases or to do some of those things,
right.
because obviously, yes, we want to protect everybody, and we want you guys to be safe here too. But the whole thing is that it's just, I guess that's part of the reason why ourselves and so many other youth groups and mission groups across our area do so many things, is because we're trying to get you guys to see the world in maybe perhaps some more compassionate or different eyes. I think that's one of the things that we try to do with you, is we try to open up your eyes and your hearts a little bit to be a little bit more compassionate. And that's part of what this thing is all about. It's part of what your fair trade coffee is all about. It's part of what your youth group trips are part about. So at any rate, I've been here talking this morning with Maddie Szell and Emma Leach from the St. Peter's Youth Group, and I know that they're just representative of all kinds of wonderful youth groups throughout the area. These are some of the issues that they certainly want to work on, and this is what we're going to continue to support them in doing, in their desire to help change the world a little bit at a time. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Stick with us.
Find out how a Mercy doctor can take care of you. At Mercy, your life is our life's work. Quality, safety, and an exceptional patient experience. Mercy is grateful to be recognized as one of the top 15 health systems in the United States. At Mercy, your life is our life's work.
Well, this morning has been a wonderful conversation for me, because it's one of those moments where you see that sometimes the work that you do bears fruit in the next generation. And that's exciting for me as a preacher, as a pastor, as someone in our area who works with youth. I'm sure that there are wonderful youth groups out there, and if any of you got exciting stories about what your youth groups are about, please get in touch with us, because maybe we want to share some of those other things on the air. But this morning, the ladies from the St. Peter's Youth Group, Maddie and Emma, have been talking a little bit about one of the projects they want the parish involved in, fair trade coffee. On fair trade chocolate. How do we do those things? How do we get the parish to care about spending 20 cents more a pound for coffee? Because it might make a difference in somebody else's life halfway around the world. How do we care about those things when we go and raise awareness about issues, about immigration and those kinds of things? Unfortunately, that's one of those things that people of faith have to care about, is all those other issues. Let's continue to care. Please join us next week for Faith in Our Hometown. Thank you for joining us this morning. And indeed, let's continue to be good to one another.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.